Hey all, today we're looking at another one of our macroeconomic objectives, and this one is low unemployment. So, quick recap. So, unemployment is people of working age who are without work and are actively seeking employment. So, we might remember that that's a somewhat surprising definition at first, that it's not just everyone who doesn't have a job. So, for example, we've got my kids here who are too young to have jobs, and we've got my parents here who are too old to have jobs, or they're retired, they're not of working age. So they do not count as unemployed. You have to be looking for work and not having and of working age. Okay, we're going to look into some causes of unemployment. There are four, and they're pretty crucial to remember. So, first one, we're going to look at structural unemployment. So, that's when there's a fall in demand for a particular type of labor. So we saw this in Adelaide when the car makers closed down. We had both Mitsubishi and Holden factories here. So I just got laid off by Holden's. They were the last car maker. Who's going to employ me now? A lot of those people who worked there, they never worked again, actually. They didn't have skills that were in demand. So it's when the structure of the economy changes. So, for example, we've moved away from manufacturing more towards services in Australia, often due to technology. So, another example is we've got automatic teller machines. So, they used to be bank tellers. They used to be people behind a desk in a bank who would give you your money if you asked for it. They became unemployed. And that sounds bad, but we want this. We want a dynamic, changing, growing economy, right? This is important. So we understand that we are always going to have some amount of structural unemployment in an economy. And that's okay, as long as we deal with it properly. What this might look like on a diagram, we'd say here, market for Holden cars. What happened? There was less demand for Holden cars, so therefore less demand for Holden workers. So Holden had less demand for workers because they had less demand for their cars. All right. Another type is frictional unemployment. So these words, this one especially gets people because it's not super intuitive, but it is the correct economic term for it. So it occurs when job seekers enter the labour force or are waiting to start a new job. So I've got this guy here. He's finished his economics degree, he didn't have a job, and he started looking for work. We would call him frictionally unemployed. We don't expect him to get a job straight away, like the second that he finishes his degree and starts looking. So we understand there are always going to be people who are unemployed for this reason, like just short-term unemployed, because they are entering or re-entering the workforce. So new job seekers, so when people finish school, uni, whatever. Another big one, people returning to the workforce. So a lot of mothers, after caring responsibilities, they start to look for a job. Once they start looking for a job, they're unemployed, right? They start looking for a job, they don't have a job, they're unemployed. So we would call them frictionally unemployed. And people between jobs. So people who work on short-term contracts a lot. So, but generally we're really looking at new entrants to the workforce and people re-entering the workforce after extended leave. Okay, third cause of unemployment, seasonal unemployment. So here we've got Sven here, who's a ski instructor. He works 12 hours a day in the snow season and then nothing the rest of the year. This is also always going to occur in an economy. Because there's just not demand for ski instructors in Australia in the summertime, right? We also have, especially in agriculture industries, farming, so I imagine shearers, but definitely like fruit pickers, people who work the harvest, they could be unemployed between seasons. So we expect this type of unemployment as well, that some of this will always happen in an economy. The last type is cyclical unemployment. This is the one we really try to get on top of. So here we've got Susie, I think. She's an IT consultant. So projects on hold because the economy has fallen off a bit. We call this cyclical unemployment because it goes with the business cycle. So when an economy is in a recession or a recessionary gap, there's not enough aggregate demand in the economy. There's not enough demand for goods and services. So therefore, that's less demand for workers, right? Because the workers are the ones who produce the goods and services. So less demand for products equals less production equals less workers, less demand for workers. Cyclical because it goes with the business cycle. This is the one that governments take the most action on, and we will get into that further into the course. Sometimes you might see it called demand deficient unemployment, so just be aware of that, but we'll call it cyclical unemployment for the course. There are some difficulties in measuring unemployment. So ways that the unemployment rate that we often hear quoted in the news doesn't always tell the whole story. So one difficulty is we've got something called hidden unemployment. So we've got discouraged workers. So these are unemployed people who then leave the labor force. So remember, so they stop looking for work. They're so discouraged that they're just not going to even bother looking for work. And we remember, if they're not actively seeking work, they are not counted in the unemployment rate. So the unemployment rate could be worse if it counted these people. So we have to be aware of that phenomenon as well. And we've got these people who we call underemployed. They're not counted as unemployed, but they're not employed as much as they want to be. So if you work just a shift of 3 hours a week, you're employed. You can't be counted as unemployed, but you're not happy with the situation. And you say the economy is not making full use of our human resources, our labor resource. If there's all these people willing to work full time, make more money, but they can't get it. They're called the underemployed. And we've got different type of underemployed as well. So these are people who are skilled but working in low skilled jobs. So first thing that comes to mind for me is a lot of the immigrants who come over. They're highly skilled. They might be doctors, engineers, whatnot, but they come over here and their qualifications aren't recognized. So they're working as Uber drivers, working manual labor jobs that they're overqualified for. So we call them underemployed as well because we're not making full use of that labor resource either. And we've got these people. So this was a picture from Holden when they shut down. When these workers have just been told the news, hey, you're out of a job. They've been made redundant. They're not needed. And they're retraining. So they're not actively seeking work, but they would rather be in work than retraining, right? So it's similar to the discouraged workers. If we counted these people in the unemployment rate, it could look a lot worse. And then we have what I call hidden employment. So people who have jobs, but it's not actually counted as having a job. So you could have people working in underground economies, selling crack, selling drugs on the street, and when they get surveyed, they will say, well, no, I don't have a job, and they might be collecting unemployment benefits, but actually they have a job, they're employed. So that can happen as well, which skews the measurement of the unemployment rate. Okay, full employment. Now, tricky concept. You would have seen this last year. Full employment does not mean 0% unemployment. It's a tricky one. We expect that we will always have structural unemployment, seasonal unemployment, and frictional unemployment. It's not realistic to not have any of these at any time. So this is what we call the natural rate of unemployment. So we're producing at potential output, and that's when unemployment is equal to structural, seasonal, and frictional. The cyclical part is the one we take the most action against. And that natural rate of unemployment, we estimate it to be 4.5%. Now, That's not an exact science, but that's the estimate that we will go with. That's the estimate that SACE will go with in the exam as well. So we'll be comfortable with that. Costs of unemployment. I'm just going to take you through a fictional scenario, definitely fictional, where I lose my job, right? These are the thoughts that start going through my head. Where will I get another job? How will I pay the mortgage? How much will Centrelink give me? Will that be enough to, keep our house? That sort of thing. So the personal and social costs of this, a lot of stress. So this is one of the reasons we don't want unemployment, because it causes a lot of stress for households. So we try to avoid that. Sticking with that same scenario, where can I get more money? People taking out loans from dodgy places like cash converters. So this was a popular ad years ago. People can get themselves in a lot of debt trouble if they do this. So you can see here, $400, I'll borrow $400, but to pay it back, I've got to pay $1,680. It's a lot of interest for these sort of short-term loans, so never do it. But people can get increased debt, so say it can lead to increased indebtedness in households, which is not a good thing, causes a lot of stress. Continuing on, there's me again, sad. Mrs. Bong, she's not happy about this. Not the life to which she's become accustomed. Find a job. Why'd you get a cash converters loan? You've just put us in more debt. You're an idiot. Taking the boys. So family breakdown. You can imagine this is not hard to imagine that someone losing their job can lead to losing their family as well. Okay, continuing on. My life sucks. I need to pick me up. This can lead to drug abuse. So this sort of thing definitely has happened, but not to me. I'm not going down that road anytime. But it's a common side effect of unemployment. And in over my head, need money. Oh, desperate times, desperate measures, crime, armed robbery, those times you hear of people robbing old people because they're easy targets. You can imagine that coming as partially from unemployment. So we don't want a lot of unemployment. And homelessness. Especially with the housing crisis that's going on, Centrelink isn't gonna go too far with your rent these days. It is not gonna help you that much. So a lot of homelessness is going to be caused from unemployment. Not good. And then we've got our economic consequences. Now these are big. It's not as interesting to put into a narrative, but you can see these consequences. People have lower standards of living. If people have less income, and this is across the economy, there's more and more people unemployed. We've got lower living standards. We can't afford to buy the goods and services that we enjoy, that we would buy if we had more money. Reduced real GDP. So we're going to have a lot less consumption if people have less jobs, of course. Reduced tax revenue. So the income tax is, I think, about 2/3 of government tax revenue, federal government revenue, which means that's a lot less money that can go towards providing services for the people. So they could be increasing the government debt or providing less services. Both not great. Weird. Increased welfare payments. So again, unemployed people, you need to pay them, right? They need to be able to live, right? So more welfare payments. So it sort of hits the government on both sides. They have less money and they've got to pay out more money. So not great. So more unemployment benefits to be paid. Okay, that is it. Make sure you've checked out the other video on unemployment to make sure you know the nuts and bolts of it, how it's calculated, etc. Excellent. See you